was talking the other day in the video called You've Done Enough, You Have Done Enough, about the spiritual, metaphysical idea that you don't need to keep seeking and searching for the truth and what's real and what's the real purpose of all these things, because we get caught up in these circular reasoning loops and logical fallacies. We get caught into the trap of rabbit holes and never-ending trails of crumbs of ideas that lend themselves to finding bits and pieces of what's real and what's true, and can keep you quite occupied and even passionate and emotionally involved. And if that is your, thing, if that is what gives you meaning and satisfaction in this life, have at her. But if you ask anyone who's pursued this type of adventure, journey, and scrutinizing interrogation of these things for any length of time, such as myself and other people who speak in this manner, speaking to this minority of people who are out to shed light on these evils, these dark places, to discern what is real and true, truth seeking. It's a very involved thing with many tangents and many angles and many passionate people who have put out different resources and data sets and documentaries and books over the years. It takes an awful lot of time and a lot of energy and a lot of commitment to be able to pursue that. And as I was also saying, trying to get to the point of don't seek so much all the details and all the particulars and all the specifics and all the hows and whats and wheres, but go for the why, just as it is with our own individual purpose and our own reasons and our own motivations for doing things in this life. We have to start with the why, the principle, the baseline reason for getting up in the morning and finding some real motivation, some real satisfaction, and some real meaning and purpose to our walk. When you're looking into this truth-seeking or reality comprehension and understanding as to the nature of this realm and the reasons things happen the way they do, and the reasons that certain elements are always out to distort, confuse, dissuade, and coerce or repurpose, take over your creative force, your energy, your focus and creative spark for their own purposes. And that can be quite a wasteful experiment, which leaves you fatigued and drained and tired and cynical and sore and resentful. And while you might have figured some things out and found some things out, you've only created more questions for yourself. So at some point you have to come to that realization and that acceptance that you've done enough in that regard, and that it's time to perhaps get busy in that more central aspect, that through line, that soul purpose type of adventure and experience and experimentation, to start walking the walk, as it were, to pursue those things that are truly meaningful and purposeful. There is no tomorrow, right? As much as we think we can keep deferring or putting off or making excuses or procrastinating, whatever it might be, that in itself becomes a habit. That in itself becomes a coping mechanism. That in itself becomes an escape, because there's any number of ways to keep ourselves busy and occupied and distracted, especially now with screens and tech and the internet and Netflix and YouTube and all the rest of it. Never mind the books and the podcasts and anything and everything that can keep you occupied, keep your mind from thinking about those things that are nagging at you, from worrying about the things that worry you, from having those potential panic attacks because of those repetitive and self-fulfilling sort of thought loops and circles. Because you get stuck up in your head instead of taking the steps, walking the walk, moving in the direction of those wants and desires and aspirations. We get stuck thinking and planning, and we think we're preparing and we think we're educating ourselves about something, but that's just information. That's data, and we know that. That's the outside-in approach, which serves us to a very, very, very small degree, as opposed to the inside-out approach, which is you moving, standing up, getting up, putting your hands to the keyboard, the instrument, the shovel, the pencil, whatever, the implement, the activity, shaking hands with the people that might open doors, meeting with people, having the coffees, having impromptu Zoom conversations, having email conversation, just whatever it takes to break the pattern of that stagnancy, that inertia that's keeping you from taking the next step and the next step and the next, and to fall forward, as it were, to fail forward, as it were, because we get stuck up in here, we get stuck and then we can feel it in our body. We can feel it in, if you want to call them chakras, the energy centers. You can feel it in your chest, in your sternum, in your belly, and in your back. You can feel it in your shoulders, in your throat. You can hear it in how you speak. And it's quite an interesting thing when you really listen to how people speak, and you can hear it in their voice if they're speaking with a true voice, or if it's tense or clenched, or if they're speaking from their chest or from their diaphragm, right? Is it their real voice, or is it this tiny little tense, right? Are you speaking with your real voice? There's a gentleman who wrote, his name escapes me, but he wrote, I believe, the book, The Alchemy of the Voice, something like that. I'll link it below. I can't remember his name off the top of my head, but listen to him speak. He's got a beautiful musical voice, because it's just this calm, centered, resonant, his full vocal, chamber is just echoing this beautiful voice. And his books can help you to loosen up those tensions within you, to loosen up that vocal box, to loosen up and find your real voice, your real resonance. So when you're speaking to someone, you speak more deliberately, you slow down, you vary your intonations, you take a moment and allow for quiet and silence in between. You don't have to keep filling up the space with ums, likes, and I do it myself. Even when I'm learning by doing these videos how to improve my communication and delivery of these ideas, and to slow down a little bit from time to time, because you get caught in a thought stream, and then it just blah, 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 comes out, and then you think, taking out all the pauses. I mean, I edit these videos for the sake of audio generally, so there's more of a flow for the podcast and such. So when you're watching the videos, you probably see cuts and chops all over the place, because it's more about the audio, not so much my face on the screen, because that's not really the important part of this. It's about the message, the words, the idea, the resonance behind it. So when you are wanting to find your own voice, utilize information and ideas from people who know how to free up your voice, because that will allow you to communicate yourself better to those you meet or you want to collaborate with and co-create with. But it will also allow you to settle more into your own mechanism, to settle more into your own proper breathing techniques, to release, the tension from your throat, your chest, your belly. All of these things affect your voice. All of these things affect your cardiovascular system. All of them affect how you're able to think, because if you're not breathing properly, you're not oxygenating properly, you're not, feeding your entire energy system properly, because you're tight, you're clenched. And that goes back to the whole thinking thing and getting stuck up in your head. How often, if you're paying attention, how often do you find yourself, I haven't really breathed in 20 minutes. Maybe I should take a few deep breaths and recalibrate a little here, because right? You get stuck in these loops and this tension and this whatever. Somebody pissed you off, and then you're angry for an hour, festering on some stupid random thing that somebody said. Who cares? My goodness, what a waste of time. But these are also coping mechanisms too, right? We use these little jabs and these triggers to project that anger and that angst and the energy out of us, to try and dispel that tension. So that in itself is cathartic, right? But if we rely on that all the time, if we're looking for the next thing that pisses us off, we're looking for the next stupid comments. He's going to say something stupid today. Man, I hate working here. Man, I hate that son of a bitch. Great, it gives you an outlet, but it's also another one of those excuses to not summon from within the truth, the creatorship, that spark, what you're supposed to be doing.
Through the fire and stone, our hearts are racing whenever
there's no end to these things that can knock us off our high horses, as it were, to ruin our mojo, to sap the energy, to start our day off in the wrong way, to remind us of how much life sucks. I mean, it goes on and on and on and on. So if you're looking for these things, if you're already oriented in that direction, if you're already pre-populating your field, as it were, with these potentials of things, because you need those outlets, because you need to get angry, because you need to dispel that frustration, that angst that you're not using in other creative ways, because you've built a habit of doing these things over months and years, you'll find them. Life will provide, because that's what it does. It's going to feedback things that you're putting out there. It's whatever you're using that potential toward, it's going to give back in ways that you're quite likely unconscious that you're doing. So we have to become conscious of these things, and we have to remind ourselves that as much as we want to throw away the day, if we're not feeling motivated, if we're not finding that flow, if we're just not in the right headspace to do that thing today, it's forget it, I'll do it tomorrow. Again, as I said, there's so many outlets and distractions and ways to occupy our minds and energies and just to shut it down, because it's exhausting, it's overwhelming. We'll find a way to, settle into that mindset, because there's the inner chemistry that's going to lean you into the same habits, the same behaviors that you've done previously, because you're used to that dopamine hit. You're used to whatever these internal chemicals and addictions are reacting to. So you'll lean into it because that's what's most familiar and most common to your experience. So once you've come to that point where you acknowledge that you've done enough, you've built a solid framework of understanding, this is going to keep developing and unfolding throughout your life. So you're never really finished it, but you're not attached to the idea that you need to prepare, figure something out, understand it, decode it before you can actually start walking, stepping forward in a more purposeful, meaningful way, doing what you feel you're supposed to be doing, to pursue those steps, to pursue those opportunities, to start creating some opportunities to actually proceed in your actual conscious, purposeful manner, to pick up that pen and start writing that whatever, to open up that word process, to start typing that book, that script, that whatever, to make that phone call, to send out another few emails to producers, agents, reps, whatever you're, needing some assistance, whatever you're looking for, assistance in collaboration, some guidance, some feedback, some ideas that will spark your own imagination, that will awaken that motivation, and that momentum will start to build slowly toward whatever it is that you're aiming to achieve. And it really doesn't matter what it is, because if that's what you're here to do, or if that's something you want to try and see, because then you'll know. And through that process, you'll learn other things that might come up, and unexpected avenues and opportunities that might come up that will completely change your trajectory, but turn out to be far more fulfilling, satisfying, interesting, and productive, purposeful, of benefits to the human collective that you had no idea, that you didn't plan. But because you started moving in that direction, you started building some momentum, you started then opening those doors, creating those bridges, defining that reality tunnel, as it were. And therein you found some balance and purpose, fulfillment, happiness, satisfaction. You learn some new skills as you're going. You meet some new people, you make some new friends, maybe you find some new family, maybe you find the love of your life, whatever it might be. It's the idea is to allow for these things to formulate and to condense down into potentials for your path, for your journey, by going through the motions, not simply thinking about it. You've prepared enough to go boldly, to start, as I said, falling forward, getting up. You've prepared enough, you've done enough to just begin or continue wherever you are on your potential journey, regardless of your age, situation, circumstance, or otherwise, because you're one thought away from a new process. You're one moment away from a journey. You're one contact away from making that project come into fruition. You're one phone call or email away from starting a new relationship with a potential mentor or teacher or instructor, right? Everything is just this, it's just right there. The whole field is pregnant with possibility. So it's just a matter of engaging with it and starting to take those steps, because there really is no tomorrow. And we get this idea that we can put things off and defer them forever, and then you're 30, 40, 50, 60, 70 years old and say, It's close. I feel, things are changing. Any time now, any moment now, this person is going to change, their ways suddenly, or this investor is going to look at my project properly and positively and want to throw a bunch of money at me to do it. Whatever reasoning you could come up with, whatever thing you've been deferring and putting off, or perhaps ruminating about, or festering about, or anxious and going around and around and around, year after year, perhaps decade after decade. And in the meantime, you've gotten your qualifications, you've gone through training, you've gone through schooling, you've got maybe a few more initials behind your name, what have you. You could have done all sorts of these things, and you've prepared. Maybe you had children, you helped, raise them, you put them through schooling, or you taught them yourself. They're all grown up, they're coming into their own identities and adulthood, and still you defer, you wait, you delay, you make excuses. What's it going to take? How are you going to finally break that pattern, break the mold, and break yourself and remake yourself anew? One of the most interesting and silly sayings you'll probably hear is "fuck around and find out." Just fuck around and find out, because that's essentially what we're doing here on Earth. That is, in a nutshell, the human lifestyle, the human existence. It's so fast. Whether you're here for 5 minutes or 85 years, all of that is it's relative. The whole linear time experience that we have essentially outlined and frameworked for ourselves to be able to experience this human life, this journey as we do in this linear sort of time-based fashion is just, it's a mental construct. There's no real time involved. It's just experiences, linear kind of experiences, right? We think there's days and weeks and months and years. Come on, that's not the reality of it. That's just a concept. That's an idea. And how many lives are you living concurrently, right? How many ideas and concepts are you living out at the same time? Could it be just this one life? Could it be hundreds, maybe a few thousand lifetimes happening concurrently, all across what we would consider as the timeline, dimensions, what have you? And that's getting a little bit out there, but the point is, you in your cognitive and aware and awake self, you are here now in this lifetime, in this particular timeline, to experience life in a certain way, the way you chose to experience it. So choose to experience it. Dive in. Fuck around and find out. Because as you go through that process, you will find out. You will learn. As I was saying, you'll make those connections. You'll injure yourself. You'll heal. You'll be stronger. You'll traumatize yourself. You'll heal. You'll be stronger. The world and the construct as it is, the elements of this realm are going to attack you. They're going to impose ideas and beliefs and paradigms, and all sorts of nonsense is going to be dumped onto you, for which you can choose what you want to do with it. Because again, that outside in is just data. It's just information. It's ideas. It's okay, cool. Well, I can paint with those colors, but I don't like any of them. So I'm going to ignore all that, set it aside, and start looking in a different direction. Start walking in a different direction. Take it for what it is. It's just information, regardless of the source, regardless of their intentions. Ultimately, it has to be inside out. It has to come from within. That motivation, that idea, that inspiration, that spark of ingenuity, that creative impulse is going to come from you no matter what. Whether it feels like it's triggered from the outside, whether it feels like somebody's pulling it out of you, it may seem like that, but it ultimately isn't, because you're deciding, you are moving, you are engaging with emotions, you're dancing like no one's watching, you're singing like no one's listening, right? Write it, produce it, create it, fuck around and find out. Because there is no tomorrow. The more you keep deferring and delaying and making excuses and coping and on and on and on and on, you're just giving it away, throwing it away. It's up to you. That's not wrong. No one's going to judge you for it except you. No one cares except you, regardless of family, friends, and the people and what they say and feel and say they feel about us, and how people might say they care about us and what they want for us. What do we want for us, right? What do we want for this experience, and how do we want to get the most out of it, if anything? It's up to you. There's no tomorrow, so do it today. Have a good one.
It's been coming down every other day, but they tell me we are in drought season. That's not my story, not my reality. No matter what could force my eyes to see. And the sky is falling right on top of me, but they tell me